Okay. And you see, being up here, this is literally paradise. 45 minutes walk from the little town. Normally I go to places that are a bit further from little towns, but it's symbolic. Just referring back into, as I'm walking up the hill, don't normally do this, but I'm listening to episode 2 of the Radio 4 afternoon play serial called War of Words. Now, there you have a world of, it's as if the majority of people almost have become literally part of what is, I suppose you could say, a 3D melodrama, soap opera. Let's not flatter them by using a posh word like melodrama, because it is actually a soap opera. Their characters, ordinary people have become characters, part of the 3D soap opera. Why do I say that? Right. So in terms of your, it's happened again. In terms of your rivers, right. Oh yeah, you can actually see it. There's a river there. Now, I think we're in Wales now. There's a river. And the catchment for that river is upriver. And in Wales, so cynically, after 5 years of spinning, that they're bringing in the most modern, pro-nature environmental law that's coming in on the 1st of January to protect NVZs. Fancy words for, well, nitrogen vulnerable zones, meaning watercourses, rivers, streams that go into rivers. That river it's about the only one that's not entirely fucked for miles, but it's 80% fucked, right to the point. So you speak with people. I mean, the main person, actually, probably the person I've spoken with more than anybody else over the last 5 years is a man who will never see my material. I don't want him to, but in any event, he'll never see it. Why? What does that mean? But it's the fundamental thing that somehow needs to be shown in all of this, just civic society, mature civic society, having something to say to power, truth to power. I mean, that's a fancy melodramatic way of putting it, but the business of ensuring that the power doesn't rapaciously overstep reasonable lines in terms of the environment and the working conditions, etc., for the ordinary person, even the middle class person. Well, middle class people live along these rivers, right? Okay, so the person I speak to the most, I don't know why. I suppose over the years I've almost tried to experiment. Will he ever actually do anything? He spends hours that's the wrong word. Preaching his sort of views that, oh Christ, there's a big one coming and it's below the level of the horizon. Christ, it looks like a jumbo. This is very rare. It's a Hercules. Jesus Christ. It's pretty rare. Once a week. Right. Man, and this is what the men, I think the women are catching up on this, but started to see this 5 years ago. Men sitting there, falling in behind these current issues. What on earth's the point of an ordinary British citizen trying to understand Ukraine? There's nothing we can do about that. There's nothing we can do to influence that. And it's too difficult. It's too obscure. But let's just, I shouldn't have even used the U word. But the environment and egalitarianism and Tories not putting up benefits. Well, the benefit's the wrong word. I think the official anyone that's, you can still be claiming a little bit of universal credit when you're earning up to £40,000. Anybody in the bottom third, including a tremendous amount of people in work, get this thing called universal credit. It shouldn't be called benefit. It's just gateway to various discounts on council tax, etc., things like that people in the bottom third are legally entitled to get. Right. But not uprating your entitlements through that system in accordance with inflation. All of these things. You have these men who, the whole persona in the community is that they're somehow able, they spend a lot of time researching, and they're somehow able to get an inside knowledge as to certain things, or as to what's really going on behind the scenes. But I put to Fred a week ago, him one of 5 or 6, hey, take interest in this very specific matter that region up there has cancelled its environmental law that obviously affects that region there, and he lives literally on the border. And he takes it off on some tangent. Now, I'm not putting this well, because in actual fact, those people, you see, what's really going on there is, well, first things first, okay? Let's be crystal clear about, I'm just going to refer back into this drama that I've been listening to. It's quite good, but it fails in one big area. Why do I say people have become part of a 3D soap opera? Because 20 years ago, in fact 25 years ago, but certainly 20 years ago, it was crystal clear when you would encounter not disinformation, these are all new words, these are the words of this soap opera, a paper or an essay or an article written online, and that's before you could Google so as to check if it's come from a newspaper or something, but that's not the point. These new intelligent, all-seeing essay articles that you would encounter online. Now, almost all of them didn't have a date, quite often didn't have a name. And more importantly, if the name was there, failed to give the credentials of the writer. Now, you can say, oh, well, even then there will have been spin factories trying to harness this new thing called the internet to put out misinformation on behalf of one or other agenda. That's not the point. The point is that even then, 20 years ago, the ordinary person, like, hang on a minute. Now, if I read a book or a pamphlet or even an official scientific paper, I'll see those things: date, names, references. It gives me some sense of that the thing that I'm reading has authority, has credibility. And even more so, now, there are 2 journalists who, without a doubt, are still the best, have been the best the last 30 or 40 years, and one is Tariq Ali and the other one's John Pilger. So we haven't got any white supremacy going on there. And they write proper books. They provide a lot of evidence. They'll often try to provide 3 or 4 confirmations of evidence, 3 or 4 confirmations from different sources, and then they'll have plenty of footnotes, etc., etc. Now you know that those people, and then plenty of others, of course, who've written books of similar superb quality, you know they're unlikely. If you see something online and it says essay by John Pilger, you know that person, well, you don't know for certain, you don't know anything for certain, but you can make a reasonable assumption, and this is the only assumption we have in life, that if that is bona fide by John Pilger or Tariq Ali, that John Pilger or Tariq Ali are not going to want to sully their very good reputation by trotting out some essay that's not true. And that's how knowledge works. Now, we have this thing now where, oh, well, you look online and you could be looking at anything, and it's all, you have bot factories or whatever they are, and misinformation campaigns that's quite intelligently described in this drama. But that's not the point. The point is, any sane person should have known, I did, 20 years ago. Anything you read on the internet, unless it's really confined to certain people that have very, very good reputations and you know it's connected with them, take all of it with a huge pinch of salt. Now, of course, things have sort of moved forward slightly, and last 7 or 8 years, most of our national newspapers, everything's online. But then we'll go back to Fred. Now, he's one of those people, and I partly am one of these people, who believes that he believes his image is, oh, everything you see through the national media is fake news, or the spin of the establishment. Now, I believe that, but it doesn't actually help to discuss it. They are the power. There is nothing that can be done to, use the current word, push back. Now, so I don't know, it's such a boring subject even to talk about the independent media, or I don't use the phrase social media. Right? So you looking at your independent online media, well, it's always going to be a minority thing. However, these guys, Fred, see what they do is he spends so much time in this sort of independent media. Now, I know who's the good independent media. I know that Unheard is actually Freddie. You've got to remember with Freddie, it's obvious everywhere he comes from in the Unheard YouTube channel. I mean, he does his best. I credit that guy to always try and play devil's advocate. But he's coming from, personally, a centre-right middle-class personal background. Everything about him is centre-right, and he would probably resent that phrase, but it's privileged. That's a confusing word. It's bourgeois appearance, money matters, full stop. Now, that's where this otherwise good journalist is coming from. It's very, 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 very evident if you just sort of study Freddie. Anyway, to the point. It is the end, because all the Freds, I mean, this guy I've known 5 years, and sometimes we have 3 one-hour-long conversations a week on these matters of in the environment, etc. Not only does he never actually do anything, not only does quite often he almost sabotages by, because he never does anything. He never goes and finds out what's happening. But then there's this whole kind of, it's a sort of slightly mystique-laden image of like, oh yeah, but I've got this special info from here. Now, he's not the sort of person that's going to go around, I wouldn't call this man a tinfoil hatter. rather than make the ongoing relationship work that you need as fellow citizens working on together, maybe just a bit, even if it's just, as I did, I phoned him up because I know he will never do anything. I phoned him and say, do you know anybody? We've got this so crystal clear new issue as of a week ago. This government here pretty much have been, well, they've been caught. They've been hoodwinking that they were serious about putting this through. It's going to get diluted, if not totally delayed, pushed back right down the road. Do you know anybody that lives on that river that's got a brain, a bit of spunk, and maybe even a bit of money, so that we could work for 3 or 4 weeks, finding out as much as we can, doing almost a bit of independent journalism, but not really, and then informing 4 or 5 regions which will be affected with very important rivers that will be affected by the same issue. That's a reasonable request. No, it'll be forgotten. And then it comes back to always this little battle of, yeah, but I've got certain special knowledge about certain things, not this thing. And the point is all that's really going on there is you have yet another, I think probably the majority of men have ended up like this, not me. Lonely man spends a huge amount of his evening, in front of his wife and kids. It makes him look good that he's this kind of internet jockey. He never comes up with anything. He never comes up with anything that ever affects his life or he takes forward into the community around him. It's just a form of masturbation. It's as simple as that. And he's one of the players, the characters in this 3D soap opera, which is irrelevant, because he'll be saying, oh, no, fake news this, fake news. When the first invasion of Ukraine happened in April, it's like, oh, we were looking on social media. That tank, well, that looks like that photo's doctored. So what? Ultimately, so what? We've known for 20 years rubbish will end up on the internet. So what? So what if it's ended up on the internet in industrial quantities? That is not a thing. What's a thing is if you think Ukraine, I don't, Ukraine should be given billions and billions of pounds, are you going to, and you really feel that strongly, which you're entitled to, are you going to organise 100 people to go or 50 people to go to council meetings or even attend the House of Commons and put some pressure on? That's what democracy is. That's all democracy is. The citizen lobbying as well as big business and vested interest lobbying. Okay, I've waffled on too much about stuff that doesn't matter. But this is what matters. And I know now there are hundreds of these guys. In the countryside, it's almost all guys, actually, who are hunched over their computers. Their identity, in the pub, their identity is, oh, there's so-and-so. Yeah, he's the guy who's always, he's looking into these things. And he sometimes finds out some interesting things and tells us some really interesting things. It's like an identity. But that guy never does anything with it. And why is that guy that guy? To be fair, Sarah Hayter on the A Special Place in Health podcast that I was only found because Meg and I kind of am interested in. Last episode, I think, and that's the only media I consume now. And I get bored after about 20 minutes of it, or rather they grate on me. But yeah, the last one a few days ago, blah blah blah. Oh, I'm giving up news. It's like an addiction. It's just, you've got to treat it just like an addiction. Now, okay, fair enough. Well, you've got to have some information and for some certain things. You don't have to, but if I lived here in the farm down there and never had any information, I would still be alive in 20 years' time. Or it wouldn't make any difference to me being alive whether I had information or not, ultimately. Right. But, you see, they're becoming the norm. It's a vicious, self-fulfilling identity that it's become the zeitgeist, that that's a cool identity to have. But they wouldn't have that identity if they just walked into their countryside quite a lot. Over 50, you've got to keep doing that. You've got to have 3 big walks a week, otherwise in fact, I spent so much time trying to engage with a certain person. Life is better if there's 2 of you. That I haven't kept up my walks the last 3 months. I am more unfit. I'm at my 2 years ago I was my fittest ever, and a year ago I'm my unfittest for 10 years now. I got to get back to my walks. Right, so to the point. Why did I even say that? Because, yeah, if you on these walks and exercising your body and your head's out, and it's all in perspective, you don't want to spend time on your computer. You spend a little bit of time on your computer, but you don't spend much time on your computer. And yet that has become the way most of these guys are. And none of them read books. So there we go. We have a change in society, but because they don't spend the time walking, because they spend a lot of time looking into this damn screen, they're not happy people. So it's not pleasant to deal with them. But at the level of the citizenry organising for jolly good democratic holding power to account reasons on simple things, of course they can never retain any coherent, decent relationships. Now that's been the way with the blokes for 7 or 8 years, and I'm sure it'll become the same way with the women as well. They'll catch up, and well, I know some women who have become like that. So there is no hope. None. 0. There we go. So I just want to spend the rest of my life writing fun essays and having nice walks.